everybody, and welcome back to another Criterion Watch. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody. I'm here with my co-host,
Night of the Living Moo Cow.
and that fits you very perfectly. Thank you, Paul Presenza. And we have a special guest here.
Night of the Living, John Ward.
Yay.
Yay! And I picked this because it's a classic. B, because Paul's got great stories. He loves this movie, and this is a big thing to him. So I knew Paul would definitely want to come on this. It's not The Graduate, so we got to have him on.
Thank you for bringing that up.
And then we've got John Ward, who loves this movie. And I think the last one you were on for Criteria Watch was The Graduate, where Paul was not present. So
They're
we got
coming to
all
get you, Dustin.
And so John also has told me how much he loves this movie and how impactful it is and everything. So I had decided, well, I mean, it's a perfect movie to have on here. We've done Return of the Living Dead on Film Freaks. Why not Night of the Living Dead on Criterion? And I have my Criterion copy, and that's the only. I might have a DVD or so at the. Yeah, I might have a DVD or so at. Oh, hey, do you have one, Paul?
I have many versions. I don't have the Criterion version yet.
Now you got to make a sad face. All right. So yeah, I rewatched the Criterion version today, which was fun. And I absolutely still, because originally I'm gonna tell you guys, I didn't like this movie. I thought it was a little too slow, you know. And this was when I was a kid, and it was black and white, and
Oh God, black and white.
I know when I'm a kid, that's literally what I would always say. Oh my God, black and white. I can't watch this. And then, I mean, I grew up and I started to, and then I hated zombies. Paul, everybody knows that about me. I hated zombies for a long time. I thought zombies were stupid. And I was like, why are people scared of these things? They're so slow. I mean, literally, you can run away from this one. Honestly, they're not as slow as some
No,
became later.
this is the new modern zombie. This is the movie that reinvented zombies.
Right. But everybody always thinks of, like, when they think of George Romero, they think of like slow moving zombies. And they're not, like, the first zombie is running after her a little bit, or at least kind of sauntering.
I do consider myself to be a Night of the Living Dead like authority. I absolutely love this film, so it'll be interesting.
You and Paul might be fighting.
Paul and I going off on and off each other. So it's interesting because they, according to, if you know zombie movies, they say the first zombie movie where a zombie used a tool is Nightmare City, which is also City of the Walking Dead. That's not correct. Night of the Living Dead, the graveyard zombie uses a rock. He purposely looks down, sees the rock, picks it up, and it starts hitting it against the car window,
and breaks the car window. Yeah.
Then later on in the movie, the zombies do pick up weapons or tools to use to break into the house, and of course, the little girl uses the trough.
Yeah,
the killer.
Honestly, I have a whole issue with the whole word zombie. They're not really zombies.
They're ghouls.
Zombies,
they're called
are
ghouls.
Like the old white zombie film where you have been zombified through a voodoo spell and you were controlled by somebody else, the voodoo master or the zombie master. These are more like ghouls, although traditional ghouls usually haunt graveyards and sort of dig up dead bodies and eat them. This is kind of like a Zomghoul kind of mashup.
Zomghoul. They're the Zomghouls.
And it was unlike anything that had ever been filmed before. So that is why this movie is a touchstone moment in horror. It's kind of like when Anne Rice wrote the whole Interview with a Vampire thing, and all of a sudden vampires shifted from horrible, disgusting, scary monsters to these sexy, cool people you want to have sex with. Sea change in vampires. This is the sea change that happened.
Are you saying nobody wanted to have sex with Bela Lugosi?
There was a little bit of that in there, but no, I think most people were not interested in that.
Well, unless he went Look into my eyes.
But that's the main thing for this particular movie. It totally changed because really at the time there were other films that did gore. I mean, you look at Herschel Gordon Lewis's. I'm thinking Gore Gore Girls and Wizard of Gore. They were there. They just weren't that good. But to have it paired in such a very serious, dark tone, grim film like this, it just blew everybody out of the water, and it remains one of the biggest cultural horror movie impacts that I can think of. It's one of the best.
So this is for Jonathan. So I know because since he doesn't like zombie movies and black and white movies, here I got the colorized picture
Thank
for you.
you.
Right
Woo!
Here. So now you have colorized Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, right travesty.
Well, I am going to agree but disagree with Paul because if you have films like White Zombie where it's voodoo, but then you do have the film that came out after Dawn of the Dead, Zombie from Fulci, which was called Zombie.
Yeah.
And that did deal with voodoo.
We
and they
are
were
going to
flesh
eat
eating.
you.
Yeah, and they were flesh eating zombies. And I don't think in any of the Romero movies they're ever called zombies.
No.
And they don't even except for maybe in the radio broadcast. When I watched this, I left the subtitles on because I wanted to hear as much of the radio broadcast as possible. And I think the radio broadcast does confirm, one, they do say ghouls, and also that it is the Venus satellite that caused the problem. That it isn't a theory that people say, when they kept asking Romero, what caused the apocalypse, that it is the Venus satellite. They mention it throughout the entire movie, and they keep saying that the radiation is going up. And that it's only the recent dead that come back to life.
Right.
That it's not like Return of the Living Dead where it's a skeleton that pops out of a grave and and drops its jaw.
Or even Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, where there were some very old ones that sort of popped up and shuffled around.
I do want to say something I heard today that I thought was very interesting. Roger Ebert wrote a review of this movie, and what he said was he went to the movies expecting like the Bela Lugosi kind of horror kind of thing, and he got to it, and all these kids were there. They were like fucking 6-year-olds there watching the movie, and they said that at the end of the movie, by the end of it, when there's no hope, the last guy dies. There's all this stuff. There was a little girl that was crying.
Thank you.
Aww.
And it was like, because this was traumatizing for kids. So, Paul, please tell us your story of how you came across this.
I was traumatized by this movie. I was a little kid. I was probably about 8 years old, and my brother took me out to a late night drive-in bonanza that had a whole bunch of movies. Most of them would be, by today's standards, stinky movies. And then this one came on at midnight, and then after midnight they had some adult movies, and which was equally traumatizing, trust me. And
wait, who let you stay up till like past midnight as a child?
Oh yeah, my mom came and dragged us out of there.
but why where did you live right by it or something?
Yes.
Okay.
It was great. I was about a mile away from the drive-in and about half a mile away from a graveyard. So this movie fucked me up in a big way. Worse than probably any other movie, with the possible exception, I think I mentioned that World at War episode.
That's crazy.
This scared the shit out of me, and it was a movie that had no hope. It was one of the grimmest things I had ever seen in my life, and wow, was it effective.
What about you, John? When was the first time you caught this?
I would be the exact opposite of Paul. I saw it as a teenager for the first time, probably Creature Features, something like that, when it originally came out, and was not scared by it at all because I knew zombies weren't real. So the things that scared me were stuff that could be real. Jaws, like you go swimming in a shark attack.
Cujo.
Yeah, a rabid dog.
Yeah.
Something
Evil
like
penguin.
that. Evil penguin. That would get me. A mutated cow that might get me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So yeah. So it never, I don't know, I don't remember exactly when I saw it. I just know that it's my favorite zombie film of all time. I still think it's Romero's best movie. It could teeter with
Mm.
Dawn of the Dead. I mean, depending
Yeah,
on
I
the
gotta
day.
put Dawn of the Dead as a better film, but this movie has very few equals with regards to cultural impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a, and I think it's by far the best zombie movie ever made. And uh, um, I well, I mean, let's start from the beginning. I mean, this really came from, excuse the cover. Fuck, I had a better version of this. And of course, I ended up selling everything. And I bought this when the movie came out. So please ignore the cover of this. Is I Am Legend.
Oh, nice. Yes, the
Mhm.
Richard Matheson
Yeah.
book.
So this
Great
came
writer.
out in 54. And it's maybe here, I'll show the back instead of having Will Smith on there, because the book has nothing to do with the Will Smith movie, very little at all. And then there was also a Charlton Heston in the 70s did Omega
Mhm.
Man, which is
Mega
based on
Man.
this. And then I heard they're making a sequel to the Will Smith one, whatever. My bucket list is to make this book into a movie.
That would be
But
great.
yeah, I mean, it's such a perfect book. But it's all about communism, and it's all about, you know I Am Legend has an actual meaning in the book, but it's all about conforming and the
Yeah,
new
I mean, we
society.
just had this conversation, Moody, with
Mm.
about the original uh, oh, Body Snatchers, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That
Yeah,
was
yeah, communism.
it was
and
all
and that
communism with a horror, overcoat on.
Right.
Yeah, you just couldn't say communism in it, but it was communism. And that's the same thing with the book that came out before the Body Snatchers, which was the Puppet Masters,
Mhm.
which was also about
And the original Thing, I would
communism.
say, Thing from Outer Space.
Yeah, it's all about conforming and being one, and stuff like
These
that.
plant people with
So
no emotions, that kind
yeah,
of stuff.
and I think Richard Matheson is he's, without him you wouldn't have stuff, people like Stephen King and all these other
Absolutely,
authors. I
he
mean,
was a great writer.
Stephen King is even quoted on the back of this. I mean, thanks to I Am Legend, we have stuff like Salem's Lot and The Stand and things like that. Um, and his son is even a good writer too. But
Yeah.
Legend of
this
Hell
is,
House. Don't forget that
yeah,
one.
Legend of Hell House. Yeah, I mean, Incredible Shrinking Man. I mean, some of the best Twilight Zone episodes were Richard
Yep.
Matheson.
Yep.
So Romero was heavily influenced by this book. And which Matheson even said in an interview after he watched it that, he gives Romero props, but he found the movie to be silly.
And he
And
also found it to be like a knockoff more than an homage, of his stuff. And I thought that was kind of woof. I was like, dang, Richard. Well,
well, I mean, but he kind of did. So then 10 years later, 64, this came out.
Mm-hmm.
So
The
Last
Last
Man
Man
on
on
Earth
Earth.
with Vincent Price, which is still, out of the three that were based off of the book, this is still the closest. And the screenplay is by Richard Matheson, but under an alias.
Yeah. And
He wasn't happy
honestly,
with it.
I'm even surprised. I'm sure George Romero was surprised that Richard Matheson even said anything about it, because this was just a little bitty local movie that was not supposed to be this big cultural impact that it
Right.
became. It blew up. It's like the original, Blair Witch, where it was just this little movie and all of a sudden it was poof. It was on every drive-in in the country.
John, you always talk about like you always want to look at the budgets and stuff like that, but like this costs $117,000 and in the first 3 weeks made $700,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I mean, you try to look at stuff like what is it? The found footage films and how they've grossed, or whatever. But that, I mean, that's a pretty amazing gross right there for something at that time they weren't expecting it to do. I mean, and originally it was called, by the way, I'm sure we were gonna get to this anyway, but Night of the Flesh Eaters was the original title, and it had the
Mm-hmm.
copyright on it. When they changed it to the Night of the Living Dead, they took the copyright off the movie, and that's when everybody
It
just
at the
bootlegged it.
beginning and the end.
Yeah.
Now, if you watch, so when you're watching this one, if
Mm-hmm.
you look at films that are in public domain, Night of Living Dead is still listed, except it does have that little sidebar that says Criterion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I watched this at the very end of the film. It does say the latent image copyright 2016. So I think that's the film. Then it says latent image copyright 2017, which I believe is this Blu-ray.
Blu-ray.
So if people want to go and use this movie in their films, like we all do as B movie makers and independent filmmakers and low budget and stuff, you always like having it playing in the background because it's copyright free. Get something that's 2015 back. So don't use anything off of this. Do not use anything from 2016
from Criterion.
Is probably good anyway, because as I'm sure Mr. Ward's going to want to point out, it's kind of better seeing it in the old fuzzy kind of perspective way.
So this I did notice. A couple of things I haven't noticed before, because as Moody knows, when we review these, I really look at it with a critical eye.
And so does Paul. Paul does that too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good, as we should. So when Barbara looks up the stairs in the house and she sees the body and like the face is missing and it's just the skull, then Ben goes upstairs and drags the body away on the carpet. There's no makeup on the face. It's just a girl. Right. It's just a girl with black hair, and you just see the side of her face, and it's normal. Now, I'm guessing in a shit VHS copy, you can't see that.
It's very blurry, pixelated.
And that's the problem with this. Even though it is beautiful, and it's a 2K, restoration, this is not correct. It looks great. It sounds great. But yeah, you can, once again, you could see when the hand goes through the door and a knife cuts it, you could see that it's like a candle or wax that the fingers are made of. And you can kind of see where the thing goes around the fingers, where they kind of
very similar to the experience I had when they re-released Star Wars. I don't know if you guys remember when they re-released it later on. This is before he went in there and digitally cleaned up everything. But when he re-released it to the public and it was out on the big screen and you saw it and you could see all the mats in the background and all the stuff for the special effects.
Yeah, like the squares.
Yep. That's kind of what, it wasn't as bad as that. It wasn't as obvious as that. But I remember that and thinking, oh man, this does not look good.
No, it sounds terrible.
Yeah, so in some cases, when you clean it up, it looks great. In some cases, like to the average person, I maybe this would be the version to watch, because it is kind of like how you were. I didn't like zombies, it's black and white and all that. So maybe I didn't like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. When I saw it on VHS, I thought like it made me feel dirty, like I wanted to take a bath or something.
Oh yeah, that's one of its charms.
and so it went, I don't like this.
37 showers.
Yeah, and then when I think it was Elite that released it on Laserdisc. My God, did that thing look good? And I fell in love with the movie and liked the whole series. Well, most of the series after that. Oh. And so, I think in Texas's case, it works. In this case,
it does not.
It doesn't.
Yeah, the grandpa finger suck scene will always go down in history for me as one of the most disgusting scenes I've ever seen.
So, interestingly enough, I watched this like on the disc. There's some great extras, and one of the extra on the disc is a interview with George Romero. And in the interview, George is is in Toronto or something for, a film festival, and they're showing off Night of the Living Dead, and he's got a Q&A, but he's also talking to the host, and he's talking about how he sees all these mistakes, and somebody asked him about the mistakes and stuff, and he talked about how when he looks at it now as a filmmaker, he goes up, because there's things like he never thought about screen direction, like people looking at each other exactly right, like you're supposed to point and see each other, because then he looks at it as, oh, why are they looking that way, and you know what I mean? So he sees all these things that I never noticed. When I watched it again, I didn't notice that. I'll have to go back and go, oh my God, I can see what he's saying. But originally he sees it because he films it and he sees like every frame, every second, all the time. He has to rewatch it all the time and see sort of what he fucked up.
some of the folks that he used were more theatrical actors, and they were used to blocking. And I
Hmm.
don't know that he really utilized
Yes, he
blocking.
did.
He
He
did?
did. So what he did was, John Russo or Russo, how do you
Russo.
Russo talked about it in a thing where they actually went to the set and they would actually rehearse everything.
That's
So
great.
it was different than like a normal film these days where nobody like rehearses, they just kind of go right to it and everything. He actually said they set everything up. They would know exactly where each person was going to be, or whatever, and then they shoot that. So it makes me laugh that he said the stuff about screen direction because sounds like that's something that they could have figured out during the rehearsal, but I guess he just didn't know that that was something that he needed to
And by the
fix.
way, they really need to get back to rehearsal. Rehearsal is fabulous. It's critical, I would say.
Yeah, we actually had rehearsals for Dark Office when we were shooting that. We made sure that we went over the scenes and then we would talk about it or whatever. Then we
Because
make sure.
that's how you pick up mistakes before they happen.
I know it slows down production, is what people say, and I'm sorry, but I'm not like a Mr. I make a million movies a year, and
Right,
I don't need to stop and because then people look at that and go, why did they do that? Well, because they didn't plan it
right.
before and they just
Most
went into it.
TV shows where you're using the same director and the same cast can do that because they're
Right.
familiar with working with each other and they know all that shit.
Yeah.
When you've got different people coming in for the first time, especially, no, 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 no. Can't do that.
But for this, it was all of his people from Latent Image.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
can even see in the commercials that it's the same people that he uses in the
Judith
commercials
was in
to
a
this.
commercial for it was like Duke beer or something, and it was the funniest like those little things, those little, like commercials. I'm just like laughing my butt off because that's one of the once again that was one of the segments was about the early years of Latent Image where they started and how they became it how they ended up doing this.
I
Awesome
mean,
feature.
what I love is that really George Romero was one of us. He was just a little local filmmaker who made a little local film and lived the dream. It blew up, became a huge thing.
Well, and the good thing is that he knew people
Mm-hmm.
because I think because of the commercials and probably how he dealt with people, he was able to get real police, real cop cars, real helicopters,
Real
real news
hillbillies.
reporters, yeah, real hillbillies, and which I thought it was interesting because watching numerous documentaries on these guys, they're liberal. So it's especially the actor um who plays Cooper. One, I don't think Cooper's a racist. It's never mentioned in the movie. He never acts like a racist. He just
Just an
acts like a
asshole.
yeah. He's just an angry guy, and even in some interviews with him, like many decades later, when he talks about Dwayne Jones, he like tears up, because he talks about what a crappy life the guy had and
Mm-hmm.
how good of friends they were. So, but I think it's so you have these guys that are in front of the camera and behind the camera that all work together well. They obviously work with the town well and the city and stuff like that to get helicopters and ambulances and police dogs. But then they hire these guys to play the posse and stuff out there hunting the zombies. They all look like conservatives. Every
Right.
single one of them looks like, I voted for Ike or something like that, type buttons would be on. And
It's funny. The two comments about that. Um, Dwayne Jones was amazing, and it was kind of one of the reasons, in my opinion, that the film did as well with the kids at the time, because I think the older generation was still had problems with a black man being
Hmm.
the leading actor in this film. And Romero basically said this guy came in and did the best performance, so why not give it to him?
Right. And it was written for a white guy.
Hmm.
Ben was going to be a white guy, which
Right.
I mean, that's why his name's Ben. Like Ben's an any color
So
man.
for the
Yeah.
for the late '60s, this was a lot more liberal leaning for the kids. So I think that really really helped. But the other point I wanted to say with regards to the hillbillies, I think this is one of the great moments in film history where they show, Yes, there's a zombie apocalypse taking over and everything is horrible, except there's a certain segment of population in this country that actually is going to like this, is actually going to have fun with this. And it's those hillbillies that getting around to shoot folks.
Yeah.
Oh, he definitely shows that in Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
yeah, but in this, yeah, because at the end they're like, "Oh, let's go round them up," you
Right,
know.
because
But
when
it's
when civilization breaks, those are the kinds of people who will take advantage of it.
Yeah.
well, yeah, and if you notice in it's a black guy who's showing authority. It's a black guy who slaps a white woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's a black guy who punches a white guy. And
Mm-hmm.
then at the end, nobody comments on his color. Nobody, even Cooper doesn't comment. In the remake, I think there is, if I remember correctly, there is a scene where the actor who plays Cooper, that character, almost says the N-word. And that's when Tony Todd, Ben, goes like, say it, say it, say
Mm-hmm.
it. And so they do make him more of a racist in the remake. But I don't think he's a racist at all in this. I think he's just a guy who wants
Well,
he's
Yeah.
like he's got that like kind of Napoleon thing going,
you
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 know.
can you can read some of that into it, whereas it probably is, but it's not brought out. It's not something that he's overt
That's
about.
I think that's if they only changed the script, which from what I
Mhm.
understand they didn't. So it's
Right.
never brought up that Ben is black. And of course, also when the film came out, that's when Martin Luther King Jr. got assassinated.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's all of this
Well, and
stuff happening at the same time.
and the
right.
Martin Luther King thing didn't happen until they were already in distribution.
Right.
So they were like, "Oh crap, this is going to be a big deal." Like we're
A
putting,
bad event, but good timing for the film.
yeah, bad event, but like, wow, holy cow! And then I think Romero was talking in the interview about how he was driving with with the guy who plays Johnny, who's his partner, producing
Thumbs up to
partner,
you too.
and he goes up and he goes, "Oh, did my thing go thumbs up again?"
You know, you could turn that off.
I don't know what is that.
You just have to go into settings for Zoom and turn it off.
Okay, I don't
It
care.
yeah.
That's your zombie thumb.
I know. So anyway, so they're riding in the car together, and the radio comes on saying that Martin Luther King has just been assassinated, and they're just like looking at each other, going, "Oh crap, we're about to like release a movie that's gonna make like change things a little bit, like things are gonna get," and I love that,
But it happened kind of in their favor. It's not like I'm thinking like Buffy. Remember the episode where the Jonathan character goes up in the tower with the rifle? That happened the same week of Columbine. Talk about bad fucking timing.
Yeah, that's bad timing. There's a difference between bad timing and good timing,
Right, right.
I wanted to mention, guys. So the first guy who plays the first zombie we see was Bill Heinzman.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was, I remember I told you guys I hadn't really watched Night of the Living Dead, but I went up to Pittsburgh for a horror convention, right? And I was interviewing, I forgot what group of filmmakers, but I was interviewing a group of filmmakers about their movie. And Bill Heinzman, dressed up as the first zombie,
Nice.
walks up to me, goes, "Rawr," right? And they're like, "You should interview that guy." And I go, "Okay, hey zombie, what's your name?" And he goes, "Bill Heinzman." And I go, uh, "Bill Heinzman, the producer of Night of the Living Dead?" He was like, "Yes." I was like, "So what was it like?" I swear,
Now you're
I hope
interested.
Chris had that like tape because we never released it for whatever reason, and then Bill passed away like
Oh
a
my
few
God, you
years
got to
later.
find it.
I gotta find it. That was the greatest thing because the look, I guarantee you, the look on my face when he said his name shocked the fuck out of me. And I was like, because I thought this was just some random zombie, and they wanted me to interview a zombie, but they're like, "You should interview that guy." And
Well, and that's what they had to do. You know, so him dress up as a zombie at a convention is
Sure.
completely understandable because of the whole copyright thing. That's the only reason why we got these sequels and remakes. You know, the Night of Living Dead remake was only done so they could make money. That's
mhm.
the only reason why it was done. But I think it's a great remake. And then John Russo kept writing the books to try to make money, and then Bill Hintzman did Flesh Eater Flesh Eater: The Revenge of the Living Dead, so based on his zombie. And then they also did which I do have here, the Night of Living Dead with the extra footage put in, like the newly shot stuff, to where it
with
was
like Deborah Shawn's in that, right? If I
Yeah, that's
recall
what I
correctly.
heard.
it's awful. And then they did a sequel to that called Children of the Living Dead, which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Oh, that sounds
And
like something on IFC.
oh my God, is it horrible? And and I think it was during Children is when Romero called them and said, stop or I'll sue you. And because he didn't like that they were doing all these. So it's like, oh, okay, so it's okay for you to go do it, but we can't. So that's the only reason why all of these, like I almost have an entire shelf of just like Romero-esque, like Dawn of the Dead, and then the remake, and the Day of the Dead, and the 2 remakes, and then Return of the Living Dead and its sequels, and so forth. And it's almost an entire shelf just dedicated to this one series.
I can only have this one and Dawn of the Dead. All the other ones, even
Return of the Living Dead.
Well, yeah, but that's not him. That's
right. But John Russo, didn't he have something to do with it, like write it or something, if I'm correct?
Yeah, it's based on his book, but the book has nothing to do with the movie.
Oh, okay. So
the book is closer to Children of the Living Dead, and because it's about a school bus of kids. I think there's 2 versions of the book, and I think one is a novelization of the movie, and then the other one is his actual story.
Yeah, to me, Night and Dawn are the big 1-2 punch, and to me, Dawn of the Dead is the same thing, only everything has been upped, including the gore factor. And there's this other different kind of political undertone and social undertone that wasn't quite there in the first film, where it was more, the communist kind of stuff. And I think it's a better film overall. I just think that it wouldn't have existed. None of this stuff would have existed without Night of the Living Dead first.
Right. Yeah, especially with the Dawn of the Dead was all about consumerism, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And whatnot. And so
it had an edge of humor, like black humor to it, that the first one did not have at all.
Yeah, but would it exist without the VHS colorized version of Night of the Living Dead brought out by Hal Roach, where the zombies are green? And right here on the back, it does state Night of the Living Dead. They scream louder in color. Says it right there.
No, brother.
Okay, so why do you? Okay, so I thought the reason that you got these things is to see the worst version, right? But
some of these are. So this I had bought originally because Hal Roach also brought out King Kong colorized, where King Kong is purple. Like that's how bad
Rascals Hal Roach, right?
Yeah. So he released a few films. Colorized version, new Hal Roach Studios down here. So some of these I own because they're more of a collector's thing. But this I did buy because I thought it was hilarious that it said "Zombies scream louder" in color.
Yeah, it's just stuff in public domain that he was getting fat off of.
Yeah, and I bought this and I was watching it and my girlfriend at the time got really annoyed that I was watching it, so she decided to have sex with me. So it's instead of
what punishment you had.
I know. So it has a little place in my my heart. So
maybe watch the colorized version of Night of the Living Dead. Let's have sex.
Hey, you know what? We're telling people that's how you get it. How you get some. And
sometimes
we'll start putting that on there, and then girls will get upset and have sex.
I know a guy that used to be friends with my older brother who said, yeah, I was there in the drive-in theater when that first came out in Delaware, like the first night, and I don't remember any of it because I was busy fooling around.
It happens. And then so this is the one that I recommend if you want Criterion. Yeah, obviously get Criterion. To me, this is probably it's not the grainy, but it is the best version of the film to get if you just want to go more mainstream, because it also has that really good documentary on it. It has 2 audio commentaries, all new documentary, one for The Fire, Speak to the Dead. It's got the last interview with Dwayne Jones. So this is a really good version of the film to
Yeah,
get.
I've got that one.
It's one of the
So
anniversary
are
editions.
is the commentaries have hold on. There's a commentary with on this one there's two commentary tracks from 1994 featuring Romero, Russo, producer Carl Hardman, actor Judith O'Day and others. So
It just says featuring George A. Romero and members of cast and crew. It looks
that's
like this came
probably it.
out 2008.
Okay, so
And
that's probably the 1994 commentary tracks. And
yeah, this is Dimension. So
oh, Dimension put that out. Okay.
yeah. So it's my favorite one. It's the one that, but you were mentioning to me that, and I've heard other people say this too, and I think Paul agrees, the best way to see this movie is in the shittiest possible way. You want as much film like scratches, you want the film to kind of tear a little bit and kind of jump. You
Yeah,
want it to have that real documentary type feel.
that 70s
Like
feel.
yeah, if there was like a if we all died out and in a time capsule some aliens found a movie, you would want to see something like this. You know, you want to see the more crappy version of it, so then they go, oh my god, this really happened. You know,
Yeah.
it's real. But I keep, so from time to time when I go to Zia Records or one of these other places, they always have the long row of Night of the Living Dead. So I'll grab at least one version of it, hoping to find the crappiest version that I can. So I bought this one. Look, okay, it's cheap. It's got the cheap cover on it. And then I got home and then it says digitally remastered. I'm like, fuck, that's not going to be the cheapest one out there. There's no special features on it, and it's full frame, which is fine because the film wasn't shot wide.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know, and then I thought, okay, well, let me get this because I do have the VHS colorized. So let me get the classic is now in deadly color DVD. So you get the black and white, you get the color, and you get also Mike Nelson from Mystery Science Theater doing audio commentary.
Nice. Well, that's one of the reasons why I hadn't picked up the Criterion version of this, because I wondered if it was going to sort of ruin my, old memories of how I see this film.
Well,
You know what I mean? Because it's too cleaned up.
I like the idea that that Mike Nelson did that because he did the Plan 9 in color commentary kind of thing. So I think that would be really funny to hear what he has to say. I mean, I don't know if he can how bad he can actually make fun of this movie though, because it's not a movie that I don't know, it's a very
Yeah,
serious
I don't know.
movie.
Not for us. I just wonder about these little kids now. They grow up in a very, very different context. It probably looks pretty hammy to the younger set.
Right. And I'm wondering Um, because a lot of people are being offended by a lot of older cinema.
Everything.
Well, everything, but older cinema is still too. And I'm wondering, like, would people be offended by the slap? Would people be offended, by a lot of
No,
the,
no, they you mean the slap in this?
yeah.
No, because it's a black guy doing it to a white girl. So it's completely acceptable that a black man slap a white woman
Well, she
in
was
this
bugging out, man.
because that's how society
He
is.
just needed,
Now, if it
I
was the
mean,
white woman slapping the black man, that would be offensive. So
or if it was a
you
white
can't.
man slapping a
Well,
white woman,
what we
know.
need
No,
to
no, no.
do,
White woman's
Moody,
okay. Black woman is bad.
we need to grab one of our young little friends and do this movie for Patreon only, just to see what kind of reaction we get.
Yeah, somebody who's never seen it before,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, it would have been great for G. Larry Butler's
Oh, Bonnie.
daughter.
Yeah,
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 because I think she, out of all the crap that you made her watch,
yeah.
it'd be nice to show her something that's actually good, or whatever. Um, but anyway, I don't know, and people may look at it differently than we do,
Like Santa
obviously.
Meets the Ice Cream Bunny isn't a great film.
Well, if you guys want to do this on something that's really bad, like we're praising the film here. So on one of the other shows, if you're just looking at bad movies, then this is what you should review. This is
What is that?
This is that anniversary one, the 30th anniversary limited edition where they added in, they went out and shot new scenes with all the zombies and other things and put them into the film. So then this would actually be part one, along with Children of the Living Dead, or Children of the Dead, I think.
Really? Is that what they were trying to do? Is
yeah,
like tie it together?
It's the 30th anniversary limited edition. Let's see here. Okay, so to celebrate the 30th anniversary, the cult classic Night of the Living Dead has been expanded and enhanced to bring you the best visual and audio ever. So turn out the lights, blah, blah, blah. So it's a limited edition down here. So it's got the numbers. They redid the soundtrack with an official soundtrack. So you get the soundtrack with the movie. And then you get a booklet, a comic book, you get all that stuff with this. But this is, if you're a fan like me, this is insulting. This is absolutely insulting to the movie that they did this. And Romero would not have anything to do with it. Instead it was everybody else. So there are scenes like there is I think it's supposed to be Cooper's family, and the car is already turned over and all the zombies are going to the car, or they do turn it over. I forget exactly, but they show you the stuff that they talk about, but not all of it. Cause it'd be too expensive to go to the diner and show what Ben did or what Ben said. This is insulting. Yeah. This is awful, but it's worth having if you're a completist like me, because it's so bad.
Well,
I think I'll stay away from it.
Speaking of George Romero, he was at a horror convention that a former friend of mine was at, who was an actress that was going to be in a Night of the Living Dead prequel, right?
Origins.
I don't want to say what. Yeah, I'm trying to stay away from saying.
The film is called Night of the Living Dead Origins.
I don't know if that's the same one or not, but it was a prequel that she was going to be in originally and never got finished. So, anyway, so they end up going to they end up chatting with him, these two girls interviewing him, and they ask him, so I'm gonna be, I think she was gonna be Barbara in the prequel, blah blah blah, and he goes, what movie? And they're like, oh, the prequel to Night of the Living. It's like, I didn't know anything about this. And in the look on his face of like sadness, just saddened me, because like so many people can make and that's another reason why I never thought about, because it's very simple to go, I'm just gonna make a Night of the Living Dead movie.
I wanted
whatever. I never wanted to, because I didn't want to upset George Romero, and I know like I'm scared of him or anything, but like that's just sad, just be like, if we made a movie,
but if he could do it, why can't others do it? His friends were even doing it, and he was telling them not to do it. There was the lawsuit between him and Richard Rubenstein, where Rubenstein could use of the Living Dead, but Romero could only use of the Dead. So it's like why does Romero get to be the dick in this and nobody else does? Look at Roger Connors. He made a great Night of the Living Dead film called Rebirth that I'm a huge fan of. I interviewed him, and he plays Barbara, and name change and all that. I'm even in one. This guy put out on Facebook. He goes, I've been dared to do a remake of Night of the Living Dead, and I'm in it. I play like a cult leader, like an Alex Jones type guy. But I told him, talk to Roger, because he had to change his title, and so you may have to do the same thing. And he did. He spoke to Roger. Now the film's called Dead of Night, but it hasn't come out yet. I would love to do one. I was going to do Night of the Living Dead Las Vegas.
Nice.
And it would happen at the same time as Night of the Living Dead, but take place in Vegas.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Night of the Living Gamblers.
Yeah, you would like if I could find like a little casino that would let me film in there, and you just have
Night of the Living Showgirls.
Yeah, just kind of up there all. And there is, I don't know if it exists anymore, but there is a Showgirl zombie show that was out here for like 10 years or something.
You're right that George Romero. So George Romero didn't even like, because he's talking about it in the interview. that he didn't like it when people made zombie movies, like, after
He
him.
was offered Walking Dead. And he said no. And that comic book series was in tribute to him.
Right.
They never
Yeah.
said there would be a running zombie in that movie, even though we had him in Return of Living. Even though they had him in Night of Living Dead, the graveyard zombie does run, but
Yes,
that's
he does
okay.
run, which drives me crazy. Them saying, they're slow moving zombies. No, there's at least one fast moving zombie, and I think they
Yeah, the
do
old
have.
school zombies were the slow shuffling ones, and yeah, they're
And
they're not
people,
they're not the fast ones of like Z Nation and stuff like that, but they
well,
weren't slow running.
they became every big. Nobody knows Nightmare City because that's running and using weapons. But it was 28 days later.
Mm.
Right.
And those technically aren't zombies. They're like rage zombies. They're like rabid.
Wow.
So but that's where everybody says, oh, do you prefer the Romero zombies or the 28 days later zombies? So it's,
Wow.
and then of course they got incorporated into the remake of Dawn of the Dead. So they kind of did both in a way.
I do want to point out that my very first acting that I ever did in an independent film was way back when I was a freshman in college, and my cousin's boyfriend was making short films. And so I was in a scene where there was supposed to be I was supposed to be making out with this chick, and there was a TV with something on in the background. And I said, well, what's playing? He said, oh, I don't know. We'll just throw something up there. And I said, well, I happen to have Night of the Living Dead with me. Can we throw that on there? And he's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. So it's actually playing in that scene out of nowhere, except for my suggestion, and I get to be making out in the movie while that's being played, which I thought was fun. I don't know that
Nice.
thing ever saw the light of day to anyone, but
Oh, that's sad. I was gonna
it
say
was
we should
fun.
do it for Sure Come Saturday if you can find
No,
it. You know.
God knows whatever happened to it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's in somebody's personal collection
Hmm.
where they're looking at
Yeah.
watching you making out with somebody. They're getting hot from
And I
that.
wasn't
Yeah.
even really making out. We just got really, really close and pretended.
Why didn't you make out? I
That's fun.
mean, that's the whole fun part of it. It's like, oh, let's actually make out, not pretend to make out, But whatever. Um,
Well, and we had brought up remakes and stuff. So I think it depends on what timeline you go with, because there's also Return of the Living Dead timeline, but then there's also the zombie timeline, which takes place before Dawn of the Dead. Because Dawn of the Dead was a hit, Zombie was made, but came out before Dawn of the Dead was released in Italy, and that's Voodoo. So
Mhm.
when they're crossing the bridge in New York, that's supposed to be them going into Dawn of the Dead.
ah.
So you could also follow that timeline too.
So did you
And because
see?
oh god,
I was just going to say, did you see Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things?
yes, I own it. Yeah,
I love that movie. I love it to bits.
I love it. I really
But
like
no,
it.
I did rent it from Netflix years ago. I haven't seen it since, but
Well, we did it. We did. Remember, we did it
oh,
in. I
that's
think it was in
right.
Vegas. I think when we were during our trip, we talked about it.
Did we talk about it? Did we do that one?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, then wait. Was Julie in that? Yeah, Julie did that one with us. And
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and that's really funny that Julie did that one with us. And then we had John for Stink of Flesh, which
Mhm.
was
Which I
another
always have to
zombie
point
movie.
out did not stink.
It did not stink. It was pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, I always have to
Um,
say that.
yeah.
I eventually bought it too. It's in my zombie collection.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I have here, because before we decide to leave, I do want to get through all my stuff for tax write-offs. So we also have the remake. This is the R-rated cut. Unfortunately, I do have a burn of the work print of the uncut version of this, and I do think this is a great remake. If they would just release the uncut version,
That's the one with Patricia Tallman.
yeah, who plays
Okay,
Barbara?
yeah.
Yeah,
I had a big thing for her back in the day.
yeah, she was, yeah. Even when she was playing Ferris Bueller, when the principal mistakes her for Ferris and turns her around and it's a girl, it's like, yeah, you look like Ferris, but you're still hot. Um,
Yeah.
but this is really good. I recommend this. Then we have, and I'll show these both at the
Wait,
same
that's the Tom
time.
Savini one, right?
Directed by, yeah.
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 And then we have these,
Oh
which
yeah,
are
the 3D.
So you can get
Oh,
them as Night of Living Dead 3D 2D version. There's also a 3D version.
I have the 3D version with the glasses. I've never watched it because those things always give me headaches.
Yeah, that's why I chose to get the
why did
3D.
you buy the 3D version then?
Because it was like $1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I might have somewhere. I just don't know where it is. The 3D. I think I just because you had to buy it separately. But it is a straightforward remake. But it deals with the house they're in are like pot dealers. So they
Oh,
sell pot, they grow pot, and then they did a prequel. This is also 2D. Night of the Living Dead Reanimation.
heard about it. I've
I
heard of
have
it.
that too.
Same, but this one all takes place at a cemetery, and this is where we find out where the zombies come from.
Was
So it
it from
actually
radiation from the Venus probe or whatever?
no, it was them experimenting. Basically, the puppet, the Wishmaster, and the Reanimator are together,
Ah,
and
like
they do experiments
I
on the
don't.
dead, and they come back to life.
Nah,
See, I thought
nah,
it
I
was
don't
going to
want to
be
see it.
that lemonade that has the extra caffeine in it from Panera.
So they're not good, but they're not bad at
Maybe,
the same time.
maybe someday.
Then this is
Bath
British
salt zombies.
Night of the Living Dead Resurrection. So, which is not horrible, but not good at the same time. It's kind of falls in the middle. And then this one is a collection of zombie films, but it has Mimesis, Night of Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one I hate the ending to this movie beyond belief because it's just Scream. The idea is great. They kidnap people from a party. They put them on the same set as Night of the Living Dead. So there's a black guy as Ben, there's the woman as Barbara, and they have to reenact Night of the Living Dead. And there's people as zombies.
That's kind of stupid.
And I enjoyed it until the end when we find out that they're film fans who had to take it a step further and do this. And it's like, oh fuck, now it's a Scream.
Yeah,
That's all
it's
it
just
is.
like
It's just
Scream.
Scream.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they did do a sequel. I forget what movie they used for the sequel, but there is a second one to this with the same mimesis, which is memory.
Right.
So so they did that. And then we get into animated movies. Night of the Living Dead Reanimated.
Oh wow.
Where it's a whole, this is from Wild Eye, it's a whole bunch of different animators animating the movies. They take different scenes and put their own touches to them. So every
Interesting.
scene has a different animator.
Well, does it have the same voices for the characters and stuff? Like, is it the same movie?
I haven't seen this in a long freaking time. I would think so. There's not
Because
really
there was one
credits.
animated that had like Danielle Harris doing the voice or something.
Well, it's funny you say that because it's this piece of shit right here,
Is that the next one that you're
which is Night of the Living Dead Darkest Dawn,
Okay.
which I hated. It's an hour. It's supposed to be Night of the Living Dead, but in the city. I was looking forward to this. This thing was like $60. And I finally found it cheap for like
Wow.
$20 used.
No, still.
And I was so looking forward to this. And it's Tony Todd, Daniel Harris, Bill Moseley,
Nice.
Tom Sizemore.
Oh my goodness.
He plays like an army guy. And I was so
What a surprise.
It's a CG movie.
Rest
I
in
was
peace, Tom.
so disappointed in this. It's amazing. And then my last couple, Night of the Animated Dead on Blu-ray. And this one looks more like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles type of thing with the animation. So, and it's Warner Brothers. So,
There
and
you
then
go.
the best, and then this is my last one. This might be one of the best documentaries that I've seen of Night of the Living Dead. There's a couple others that are on YouTube. One of them is called Chronicles of the Living Dead. It's an hour and 5 minutes, and it's really good. So I recommend that. But this is Reflections of the Living Dead.
Mm.
And that pretty much has everybody. They got like anybody that was still living is in this. And it's done through it's Tempe. Tempe Entertainment.
Yeah.
So J.R.
Oh,
Bookwalter is interviewed in it. I
So
bought this and then found out it's edited. So I had to fucking buy it again on Blu-ray to get the unedited version.
so you realize what has to happen, John. You have to make a meta movie where you're making, you know, the Return of the Living Dead, where you're bringing back to life everybody who was in the original movie who's dead, back to life to reenact the exact same movie that they've already done.
I like that.
that
Oh, you're
sounds
you're just you're
silly.
just a fountain. You're like a fountain of ideas.
Yep. It's
Just a fountain.
the curse that I live with.
Yeah, he just comes up with these ideas, but then that's it.
So
Um,
that's my collection of my collection of just Night of the Living Dead, but as a whole, it goes on like that.
Hmm.
I even have Day of the Dead 2, was it Contagion, which is considered one of the worst
Yeah,
movies
I've got that. That's
ever
bad.
made.
It's bad.
It
It's
is
not even
not
fun
good.
bad. It's
No.
just
so
bad, bad.
in speaking of documentaries, in the I guess little documentary or whatever little interview, George Romero and the guy talks about the American Nightmare documentary. I guess have you guys seen this documentary? I
Heard of
want
it,
to see
haven't
it.
seen it.
But it talks about the 60s and 70s and how influential
I think I
horror
own
was.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, how influential horror was at that time and how like and what I always like when I was like thinking when I was watching this movie was like okay, so at the time I mean there Paul mentioned H.G. Lewis and people like that, but like uh those weren't popular enough where they were the movies people were really watching. And the movies that people were watching were like the 50s style B movies and stuff that weren't very scary at all. They were just very silly and
Psycho would
very
have been the
goofy.
king at that period of time,
Yeah, Psycho would have been the
or
king and
Peeping Tom, maybe.
Keeping Tom, and maybe even some like William Castle ones that didn't use the gimmicks.
Yeah, by
Um,
then, the more mainstreamy stuff was like sort of like Roger Corman's Poe stuff, where but it was all really more costume drama than it
right.
was real horror.
Well, I was thinking about it going, like he thought he would make something scary, right? Try to get back to scaring people, or whatever, making horror actually scary again, and you know, in this world right now, I feel like we need that. I feel like we don't have that. I feel like there are companies in Hollywood, especially like I mean I hate saying it because like Blumhouse makes a lot of good like some fun horror
Did.
films, right. But what do they do now? They go PG-13 and try to make it safe. They play it safe because they
To
don't want
cast a
to.
wider net to get more
Right.
money.
Exactly. More money. That's all they're worried about is getting more money. And I guarantee you they'll get more money if they make a hard R, rated R, scary as fuck
but
movie.
but they won't, because you have a 6-minute film, if not shorter, for the killer swimming pool movie. Was it Night Swim? And then it's like, okay, now let's make it into a 90-minute movie, but we'll only now I don't know its actual budget, but I'll say, okay, so the film will give you 5 million to make it. Well, even though everybody says it's a piece of shit, the film made like $30 million.
Right.
So why would Blumhouse change what it's doing? I know so many people who thought Smile was scary. Like
What?
oh my God, I had to turn it off. It was so scary. And I'm like,
I
Smile is awful. It
I
is horrible.
I
It
know
is one of
some
the worst
people
written films I've ever seen.
I know some people who are not in the horror industry. They're not even in the movie making industry that actually say that the new Exorcist was scary. And I'm
No, it
like
wasn't.
Please,
It wasn't.
why?
please,
Why are people like
come
saying
on.
this?
But if you're average Joe who works, I don't know, at a pizza place or something, maybe that is scary. But if you have filmmakers, and I've done a couple of videos where I've said this, if you find this film to be good, stop making movies.
Yeah, the
Because
thing.
I'm sorry, we all can agree and disagree on stuff, like if you think it's good or not. But there are people out there who I think, like, if you really think the movie Smile is good, stop. Just stop.
Yeah. just
It's
gonna
not
review that. We're
good.
reviewing that soon.
The reason this one worked when it worked too, I think, is because it had a very different approach to horror and to scaring people in general. Whereas before it was more of the anticipating and you know, the dread of things like that. That was different. This is all visceral. This is seeing the violence and seeing the gore and seeing the viciousness and the heartlessness, the lack of hope. The thing where Tom and Judy get blown up and then consumed, that was so draining.
That's Judy's fault. That's completely Judy's fault. When I watched it this time, I finally realized Judy was useless in the whole movie, except for just being eye candy. And she has to, for some reason, go out to that truck. And we have this weird kind of ADR line with her going, "My coat is caught."
Yeah.
And if she didn't come along, Tom would have driven the truck away so it didn't blow up right next to the pump, and everybody would have been fine. But instead, Tom has to try to save her. So she, and later, you know, Harry goes, "Well, Ben got 2 people killed." No, he didn't. No. Judy did. Judy got them killed.
But he didn't. I don't think so. In Harry's defense, he did not see exactly everything that happened, you know. And
well, no, I know what he's saying is if they didn't go to the pump, they would still be alive. If they just hid in the basement, Harry was correct all the time. Technically, both of them were right. I mean, if you stayed upstairs until you had to go downstairs, that would have been the best thing to do.
Yeah, it was just bad luck on Tom and Judy's thing. It really sort of sunk me when I first saw that. I was like, oh man.
My only they get eaten.
My only issue with this movie, I only have one issue. When did anyone go to the bathroom? Nobody ever went to the bathroom.
Come on. If you're in that much chaos, you're probably not thinking about going to the bathroom.
You're probably going to the bathroom in your pants.
The only thing I can think of is the last movie I can remember where anybody goes to the bathroom is Poultrygeist, and I don't know if people want to remember that scene.
Oh, is that the one where Joel Flyshaker explodes in the bathroom? Yeah. That was a great scene.
So that makes up for the lack of bathroom in this movie.
I guess. But I was
also,
just like,
did you notice
why didn't you go to
the latent image book that Romero was doing some product placement?
No, I did not.
So Ben's moving around when he's boarding everything up, and against the wall on its side is the back of the latent image, and it's a book, I guess, on their commercials or something. Nice. But it's a latent image book. So within the world of Night of the Living Dead, latent image exists.
Yeah.
Wow, doesn't that make it meta?
It does. And did you know that the door that goes down to the basement was not in the house? They had the production designer cut it and then make a little closet. They could fit in the closet. And then that basement was the latent image basement.
Nice.
Right.
That eventually got flooded and destroyed everything.
Carl Hardiman had a company, and Marilyn was his actual wife, and the kid was actually his kid. And I think the girl who played Judy was like one of their receptionists or something. And you know, I thought that was pretty neat to have that world in there.
So I looked it up, and if they were married, it doesn't mention it on IMDb that they were actually married. I know they were partners, business partners. I don't know if
I think they were married.
I think they were too.
Yeah.
Okay, because it says, was she always Eastman? Because she was married to a guy named Eastman. So that's weird.
First name Eastman, second name Kodak.
I don't know. What was her first name? Hold on, let me look this up. Because I looked it up before, and where's she?
You're talking about
Marilyn Eastman.
Marilyn Eastman.
So Marilyn Eastman was married to a guy named John F. Eastman, who's an actor and he does other stuff, and writer. I know he's a writer. He acted in a movie called Rooster Spurs of Death. I
Brewster Stores and Santa
yeah,
Claus. She was in Santa
she was
Claus.
in Santa Claus, but I don't know. I don't think they were married. I don't think Hardman and her were married. They might have been dating or something because they were. She was married to John Eastman in 1961. Or wait, no, never mind. They got divorced in 1961, so they might have been married, but they're just not listed on
Maybe they
here.
weren't married during production. Maybe they
Right.
got married later or something, or they,
And she
you
never just changed her
know,
name,
yeah.
or whatever. Probably because of the business. She started that business with them as Hardman Eastman,
Hmm.
business or whatever incorporated. It's just better that she keeps her name so that she can, keep that business. It's
Yeah,
not like
but the daughter was their daughter, or was his daughter.
okay. So I
And they did the music, which is some of the
Yep.
best music I've ever
Yep.
heard in any
Really good
movie.
music.
And it's all stock. It's all taken from other movies, especially westerns, which is really weird. And it's all there. I think in that one, the DVD that I recommended, you can find that documentary on YouTube, and it interviews them, and you see them actually in like a little recording studio, and they show you the albums that
And
these were taken from. And it was all stock music that they put in because they couldn't afford a composer. And now
Russ
it's like
Steiner ended up working with John Russo. He was the guy who played Johnny.
yeah.
Yeah,
Russell
yeah.
Streiner also like co-wrote a bunch of stories with them and did a bunch of stuff. Like I think Russell Streiner was also worked with a lot with George Romero because he was one of the producers of Night of the Living Dead. And by the way, interestingly enough, they tried to they thought that they could make this movie on $6,000 originally. So they started shooting it. They realized they needed more, so they doubled it. That wasn't enough, so $117,000 was the amount they ended up needing to make this movie. But that would have been the equivalent at that time of like $990,000. That would be like almost a million dollars today, by our standards, maybe more, because it's been a little bit of time. Um, anyway, I think we're gonna have to wrap this up. But what are our last thoughts on this film, Paul?
Classic film. You need to really see it. It's not just, a monster movie or a horror movie with a lot of gore. It's actually very skillfully made, considering the time and the budget and the folks that they used. And if you haven't seen it, don't just think of it as a campy old, really ridiculous, weird movie. It's actually
Like
really,
me,
really good. Yeah, give it a
like I
shot.
thought, just give it a shot. I actually, now that I'm older and I can respect it, and I bought it. I remember when I showed Paul that I bought it on Criterion because I have the Criterion Hall video, and it was the first time he saw, and he goes, "What? Like why? Like I thought you hated zombies and hated this movie." And I was like, "I want to give
Ghouls.
it
They're
I
ghouls.
I want to give it
Yeah,
another try." You know,
Zomgoals.
some ghouls.
I
Uh
was in Zombies.
yes, you were. He was in a movie called Night of the Zombies,
Night of the Zombies.
Nice.
directed by
Mike
Will
Ferguson
Colasso.
killed him. Yeah.
Well,
I did not get killed by a
you'll
Zomghoul
have to
though.
come back and make Night of the Ghoul Zombs
Night
This
of
sounds
or the Ghoulbies.
the
cool.
Ghoulies.
Cool. And so yeah, so I will definitely recommend this movie. What about you, Paul, John?
It's my second favorite film, The Graduate. The Graduate being the first.
That's funny that
What a
that's
great
like
mashup that would be. Night of the
So
Living Dead Graduate.
and I think it's the greatest zombie movie ever made. I think it's the greatest horror movie ever made. That's why I own so many things on it, because I just think that it's fun to collect the whole Dead series among other zombie movies. I mean, I have like 2 shelves of just zombie movies alone.
I
So it's yeah, this would probably, I think probably my introduction to zombie films was White Zombie, and I thought it was boring as hell. It was so boring.
It's
And
all
then
right.
I saw, I mean, it's fine. It's fine, for but as a kid, I could look at it now as an adult and be like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a good movie. But back as a kid, I'm like, what is this? And then when I saw this, I fell in love with zombie ghoul stuff.
yeah,
So, but I love it. I think it's a great movie. So
Night of the Living Dead's Graduate. I want to see that. I
I'm
want to see that
telling
happen.
you,
That's a great
Dustin
title.
they
Hoffman and what's her name? They run away from the church. They get onto the bus, and it turns out the bus is full of zombies, and they get eaten.
I mean, you could
The
also
bus
call it
breaks
just
down by a farm.
you could just call it Bus of the Dead,
They,
or whatever.
they have
Hey,
that
don't put
already.
that title out there. I have a title very similar to a zombie film I want to make.
I have one too, and I won't say the title of it because I love it.
Oh, thanks for saying mine.
I didn't mean to say yours because I didn't know yours. You never told me yours, so there you go. And don't tell me yours, so I won't ever know it. So I don't accidentally steal your title.
Keep your ideas. That'll never happen to yourselves, guys.
We have all these ideas, but anyway, everybody.
I told the Mahal brothers I want to make a zombie film, and they said, "What's the title?" And I told it to them, and they're like, "Come on, man," because the title is kind of a combination of two of their titles, but it was unintentional.
Hey, nice. I still want to make cow pyres, vampire cows that run around and drink the milk of the living. That'd be awesome.
I mean, I wrote something that was similar to an idea you had, John, that you did tell me before, and it was my first script, so I had no idea. But we seem to be linked at times, and whatnot.
I sue you.
I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but yeah. So everybody, thank you guys so much for checking this out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out next month's episode where Paul will be doing it. Who knows? We'll probably be back in the studio with the new couch. We got a new couch.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe Turk,
and
for giving us a new. I don't like that title, Love Seat. Like that makes it sound weird. Like you have to make love in the seat or something. So I don't like it. But I like chair.
Mr. Literal.
Yeah.
How about just couch?
Well, couch and chair. There you go. But anyway, everybody, I love you guys so much. And hope you guys enjoyed this and join us next month for a brand new episode. Until then, everybody, bye.
Peace.